Morning, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Krystal Konkel. Krystal, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, Sugata.
I had Tim on the show a few months ago, and I've been trying to get you on the show for a bit. You've been very busy traveling all around the world. But before we get going, I'd love to have you take a minute and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, and thank you. I've been really looking forward to this. I know it's been a crazy few months here at the 20, but excited to finally sit down and chat with you. I am Krystal Konkel, CMO here at the 20. I've been here about 8 years now, or I say I've been here, been back. Actually, I first worked with Tim 13 years ago when he whiteboarded the idea for the 20 and what it would become, the acquisition arm, growth platform, all of that. But I came back about 8 years ago. So I left, I started a marketing company, sold that, and made my way back here. I've been back since, and it's really been just an incredible ride at the 20 with what we've built, both on the MSP side with our managed service provider company, and then the growth platform that we've created for other MSPs. And then for those who are looking for an exit strategy, we've acquired 44 of them in the last 3.5 years. So again, very busy times, crazy ride, but I oversee all of our marketing, brand, demand generation, public relations, and all marketing strategy.
So we have a lot to talk about on every aspect of everything that you just said. But talk to us a little bit about your journey because I want to spend a few minutes because you've done a lot of great things and the industry also has evolved. The partner space has evolved. So through that lens, talk to a little bit about like how you have seen things evolve over the last decade or so.
Oh, I mean, I can't even like put into words how much this industry has evolved. I think that coming in when I first worked for the MSP in 2012, I don't think that companies really had a grasp on marketing at all or really understood the importance of it. You saw that start to change over the years where then they realized, okay, I need to market to grow, but they didn't really know how to do that. And I think that it's rare in this industry to find IT companies that do marketing especially well, particularly internally if they're not outsourcing it. So definitely strong evolution there in terms of marketing. And then now within the last few years, AI has totally revolutionized everything that we're working with, including the marketing side of that, I think for the good and bad.
So let's kind of double click on that word marketing. What is marketing in your mind? I see a lot of posts from you, videos, but I would like to sort of take you kind of through that discussion.
Right. I think that marketing to me at the base level is leverage. I realized pretty early on that companies weren't winning because they had better products or better services. They're winning because they owned mind share. Buyers trust them faster. Talent wanted to work there. Talent comes to you. Partners wanted in. Acquisition targets knew who they were. And that is leverage. And so at the 20, I've watched brand pull opportunities towards us with clients, partnerships, acquisitions, talent. And at some point, you realize that marketing isn't supporting growth, it's driving it. And so marketing really stops being a department and becomes an asset. And so, talking about marketing, a lot of times people split it into two sides, like brand and demand. So, brand creates demand. A lot of companies think that they have a lead problem. Most of them think they have a lead problem, but usually it's a trust problem. They're not known. They don't have any credibility. And so, by the time sales gets involved, the best brands out there have really shortened that gap and the distance between awareness and belief. Brand warms up the room before sales walks in.
Let's talk a little bit about from the concept of the 20, right? Let's go back to the sort of the vision and what part of that vision was marketing and how has it evolved? I know you played a big role in that evolution. So let's kind of dial back maybe 13 years ago, maybe 8 years ago when you came back. What was the concept of 20 and how has it evolved? And how has marketing evolved as a part of that?
I love this question. So thinking back then, back 13 years ago, so I was the first marketing hire for the MSP, which was previously Roland Technology Group, later rebranded to the 20. I think Tim was at a conference and heard like, okay, you've got to market to grow. And so he hired me. I had like a strong corporate background working for Hewlett Packard and some other large corporations. So he brought me in to grow the company through marketing because at the time he was only doing Google AdWords, which is effective. Google AdWords is great. We still do it today. It is a piece but brought me in to really grow the company. And so when he first concepted the idea for the 20, what got him there was looking back and reflecting on like the 18 years that it took him to hit $1 million. Learned a lot, tried a lot of different things, and then finally got to a place where not only did he hit $1 million, but he was consistently adding every year and doubling in size. And then it reached a point where you're adding $1 million a month, and that's nothing. And then now it snowballs into where we are today. And so initially, that whiteboard, funny enough, when he was sketching it out, marketing was a big piece of that. He's like, we're going to help other MSPs grow. And then when they grow, we're going to help them scale because we're going to pull together, we're going to have a shared help desk, shared vendor resources. So it's a single funnel buying pool. So we get better deals than they could with the vendors. So they come through us and we pull all those endpoints together. So we're going to help them grow, we're going to help them scale. And that was the foundation of the 20. So the pillars of that were like sales, scale, and lead gen.
And from a structure perspective, let's go back to sort of people, process, platform, or tools. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that changed from the marketing function wise, even though you call it a leverage, but from that leverage perspective, how did those three things change?
Right. I mean, initially, those things didn't even exist in this business. There were no people. I was the first marketing person. There were no processes. And so it took years of building that up. So developing that marketing strategy, figuring out what the pieces of that were, what it looked like, and then getting there. We've continued to invest more and more each year in marketing. I know a lot of people view marketing as an expense, but it really is an investment that pays back tenfold.
Going back to the components, let's say from a tactics wise, if you kind of boil down, and we'll separate demand gen from branding. Let's talk about demand gen because you said Tim was doing Google AdWords, so bottom of the funnel possibly. So kind of walk us through from a tactics wise, what was there then? How did you change the mix? Where you roughly are, and then we'll talk about
Uh,
branding.
Great question. So to me, I always dial demand gen back to inbound. I know pretty much everyone these days is familiar with the company HubSpot. A lot of people use their platform. So I was one of the early HubSpot customers back in like late 2007, 2008 at a corporation that I was working at. And I think that they really coined the term inbound marketing. Prior to that, no one really had brought that out and didn't really have a grasp on it. It was all outbound. Um, and people don't like outbound. They don't like commercials. They fast forward through them. They don't answer sales calls. They quickly scroll away from anything that looks like an ad. And so I think that HubSpot really put inbound marketing on the map. And I've always been a firm believer in that. And so my whole intention and goal with marketing is to build an inbound marketing engine. And I know that a lot of people see the 20 and they're like, oh, of course they're growing. They're doing all these acquisitions. But what a lot of people don't know or don't realize is that our organic growth is far outpacing growth through acquisitions. And that is because of that inbound marketing engine. So that's what you want to create with demand gen. You want to get your customers to come to you. You want to be top of mind. You want them to know your brand so that when they're searching, they're looking for an MSP, they immediately think of the 20 and they're going to come to you. They're going to fill out a form. They're going to reply to an email. They're going to DM you on LinkedIn and say, hey, can I talk to someone there? I'm looking for an MSP. That is the ultimate goal to me.
You said a lot, so let's unpack that a little bit, right? So to you, what does inbound mean? Like, how do you where did you start? How did you evolve? Where are you now, and where are you going?
Okay. So inbound, like I said, it is buyers raising their hand coming to you. The sales team loves that, obviously, because they just they're not having to dial and reach out and do that outbound prospecting to that extent because we have a consistent flow of inbound leads. So we create that content is a big pillar in that. So creating good content that is going to resonate with your audience. I think anyone can buy reach. You can go out and buy ads, but you can't buy resonance. So you want to make sure when you're creating any content or marketing that it's going to resonate with your audience. So put yourself in their shoes, like they're sitting across from you. Like, what are their issues with their current IT? What's keeping them up at night? What's on the roadmap for their company? So thinking about those things that matter to them because they don't care. They don't want to hear the same pitch and see content out there that they're like, we're 24/7, we're proactive, we're a great IT company.
Going back to resonance wise, right? How do you figure that out? Like, how do you create, like, how do you figure out whether one overarching message or the bullets underneath or the different tactics that you carry through? Because there, as you said, reach also kind of defines what you can say through those reaches, right? So can you kind of walk us through the architecture of that?
Absolutely. And that's probably the most fascinating part of marketing to me. My undergrad was in psychology, and I'd always planned on getting my MBA working in marketing, but I feel that psychology underlies all of marketing. So figuring that out. And some of it is trial and error. You're going to A B test messaging and test things and figure out. But I think having a deep understanding of your buyer is what helps you to create that.
How do you develop that? How do you develop the deep understanding of your buyer?
Great question. I think conversations with existing clients are extremely valuable. Sitting down and figuring out, because they're going to answer those questions for you as clients, figuring out why they chose your company, what drove them there, what were the issues they were dealing with, what issues did you solve for them? Because then you can create and build around that and communicate to others, hey, we can solve these problems for you. And I think now AI has really evolved this with tools like Gong, where you can go in and analyze every sales call that you have, every client call, and you have that data at your fingertips. You can quickly analyze it, and it's going to pull out and tell you, here are their main pain points, here are their main objections, and all of that information. And so you use that to build that out.
So maybe now kind of bring some colors to this from the 20 perspective. Who are your customers? Do you have different cohorts or archetypes? And like, how do you bucket those? Walk us through maybe two or three segments and how the messaging would vary and then the tactics would vary.
Absolutely. And we have two sides of the house, as I call it. So it's a little confusing. We have our growth platform for MSPs where our clients are other MSPs. So that looks a little bit different. So we're reaching out and targeting MSPs who are looking to grow, who maybe have stalled out, but ultimately who are looking to grow, scale, and then sometimes sell. On the other side, with our national MSP, we're targeting end clients. So small to medium sized businesses. We do have some larger enterprise, mid level clients as well, but the sweet spot is really that mid sized business. So these are companies who are in growth mode, who use technology as a tool to help them grow. And ultimately, I mean, I think when you dial it back down, all of our clients, regardless of the industry they're in, the geography they're in, the thing they have in common, they just want their IT to work. Bottom line, they want it to work. They want to have the tools that they need at their fingertips. They don't want their day to be interrupted. They want productivity for their teams, and they want the technology to support that.
Do you focus on any sort of verticals like healthcare or banking, or is it pretty much horizontal?
We don't. I know that's a little controversial. I think that a lot of companies really tend to find a particular vertical that they niche down on. We don't. Tim calls it green. That's our vertical, anything green if they have money. But our customer split, I mean, it's split pretty wide across all industries. So, healthcare, financial institutions, private equity firms, medical, legal, and we cover the majority of the industries. And I think that the baseline service that we're providing fits all of those. And then, of course, on top of that, you have an understanding of software and different things that are specific to their industries. But no, we target pretty much all verticals.
So coming back to the tactics, so let's say you're in mid-market horizontal segments, and then can you kind of walk us through the tactics and do you figure out like what messaging to pick? How much do you do rotation wise? Do you run campaigns that have end of lives? Can you walk us through kind of double clicking of how these things run?
So we test everything. And I feel like if I say HubSpot, it sounds like a commercial for HubSpot. I love HubSpot. It's really fantastic for building out your landing pages, your email campaigns. You can even integrate it with your Google ads and then analyze all that and look at the messaging that's working. But we are consistently looking at things like keywords, the top keywords. And then we go through email analytics and look at which headlines are resonating with them, which have the highest open rates, and then copy within those, which ones are converting and what does that messaging sound like. And we try a few different angles and then build from there and continue. And so I have excellent copywriters on my team. Early in my career with the company, I wore all the hats. So I had to do copywriting, graphic design, everything. And it's very difficult because you can't be really good at anything when you're a jack of all trades. And so over time, it's been really awesome to build out that strategy and then bring in experts in those areas. So copywriters, designers, and they're consistently, I give them that data analytics and they're reviewing it and they're continuing to revise based on that feedback.
And then from a metrics wise, are there few key metrics that you track from a campaign level or a brand level?
There are a lot. I think that a lot of companies are really focused solely on MQLs, like marketing qualified leads. We measure a number of different things. So, branded search growth, direct traffic, inbound deal flow, organic social engagement quality, not necessarily quantity, but quality, earned media, referral velocity, win rates on warm leads, even recruiting pull. That's a big thing. I mean, like, I think that it's reflected in the quality and the quantity of candidates that you're getting in for positions inbound to you. Shortened sales cycles. And then, of course, if it's important to the business, acquisition interest. That's been a big one from us. But I think that the leading indicator is really simple. You just look at it and you ask, like, are opportunities starting conversations with that trust already established? Like, do they know our brand prior to? Are they familiar with it? Because I think when the market starts coming to you pre-sold, then obviously your market is working. And I know that's a lot. I just went through a long list. Ultimately, I mean, it all dials back to revenue. It's reflected in the revenue.
But let's go back to sort of market wise. Are there specific geography you target?
No, initially, so we're based in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Initially, that was primary focus for us, obviously, because it was where we were located. And then we expanded, opened several offices, and we've done acquisitions across the US. So we now have offices in, I believe, 35 states. And so we're targeting a large number of geographies, but we cover the entire US footprint.
And what are the personas that you typically go after in those markets?
Like I said earlier, so small to mid-sized businesses who are in growth mode.
Targeting sort of the owners or the CEOs or C-suite? Like, who are those people?
For the smaller business, it is typically the owner, sometimes the CFO. And then of course with larger businesses, it's more of like a committee and there are several decision makers involved.
And how does your sort of funnel look like? Like from the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom? Like what? How does the messaging change, tactics change? Can you kind of go through those a little bit?
Sure. Top of funnel obviously is going to be very educational. So you're educating them on the brand, the products, services, and then as they push through, then it's going to be more focused on conversion.
And what do you use for conversion?
I think that's like we talked about content and messaging, and that's where you paint that picture very clearly what the outcomes look like for them, but also that's where you are able to communicate your value proposition. If you can't communicate that and get that across, then they're never going to convert.
Right. So assuming you got the message, but from a delivery vehicles wise, are they landing pages? Are they videos? Are they
Oh, okay. Sorry, I
cookies?
misunderstood the question.
Yeah.
So a combination of things. So at that point, when they're middle funnel, then the sales team has gotten involved and they're interacting with them via phone, email. They do video content that they send out, but they're also like in our drip campaign. So they're getting content that we've built out that aligns with where they are in the funnel. We do events as well. So on the MSP side, that's really great because they're able to come to events and that's a huge conversion point for us because that's where you get like a real understanding of what the 20 is and how you can benefit.
So we talked about sort of the customer side of things. Let's talk about on acquisition side of things, because I
Okay.
also see through your own messaging and Tim's messaging, you're targeting MSP with a certain sort of messaging, right? Why they
Mhm.
should be part of the 20. Because giving up a business as a founder is a very emotional choice, right? And Tim talked about that when I had him on the call. He said they have to get through that point, understanding that what they have, it has a lot of value, but somebody has to come in to unlock that for them because they have tried, they haven't gone there.
For
So
sure.
talk to us, how does that marketing funnel look like? How do you target the owners of these $1 million businesses or maybe a few $1 million businesses? How do you convince them? How do you bring them in? What is that process like?
So I think the really cool thing for the 20 is a huge piece of that has also been inbound for us because of our growth platform. So the majority of these businesses, I would say 95% that we've acquired were members of the 21st. So they're using our platform to grow and scale. And then they start to understand, wait, I can go a lot further if I become part of this bigger thing. I could own this little MSP, or I could own a piece in a very large MSP. And so I think talking about like the building out the brand there, it becomes like an ego shift for them. So understanding, like I said, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about how you kind of bring them in and convince them. Yeah.
Okay, so stepping back to the inbound, so convincing them. So we honestly don't have to do a lot of convincing. I mean, there are a few where they're used to running their company, doing things their way, and they have to change that mindset, obviously. But I think they see the bigger picture and they realize, again, that they could have a piece of the 20. They become a shareholder in the 20. And the cool thing too is once we roll up their organization, they go from wearing all the hats in their MSP to having a specialized role where they can work in their magic. So whether that's on our national projects team and sales, operations, they get to be very good at a role, and it's great. It's a win-win for the 22 because we're getting in talent that we may not have been able to go out and recruit otherwise. But marketing to them, I think it happens organically within the 20 for members. A lot of them, they build and they grow their MSPs so that when they come to us, they're stalled out with growth and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to bring in more revenue. So we help them grow, we help them scale without adding the overhead because of our outsourced help desk. And then they get to a point where they start thinking about bigger picture, like, okay, what's next for me? A lot of them have like a lifestyle business and they haven't thought about that, but they start thinking, okay, well, what do I want? What comes next? What does that chapter look like? Whether it's retirement or wealth generation, I think that's a big piece is they get that opportunity. They own shares in the 20. And then Tim talked about this in his interview with you, but they're going to get that second bite of the apple, third bite of the apple. And it's really good. They're able to generate wealth that they wouldn't otherwise.
I just realized one thing I missed. I did ask this question to Tim, but I'd like to ask you also. What is the 20?
Like, where did the name come from?
The name come from, the framing of it. What does it mean today versus what it meant in the beginning?
Great. So the 20 came from the Pareto principle, so the 80-20 rule. And the intention initially with the growth platform was to help them attain or become the top 20% of the IT industry. And so that's really evolved, and that's still our focus is helping all of our members who come into the growth platform.
So when you look at from a global perspective, the US market is quite mature. And there, when you kind of look at the G7 or G10, a lot of those markets are quite mature because IT adoption has been happening over the last few decades. And services business, especially outside the US, is quite pervasive because there are not a lot of direct companies or companies that have the infrastructure. So when you're going on these vacation trips, I've been watching you on LinkedIn. I'm like, are they going to check things out? So is there an ambition to take the 20 outside the US?
Oh, absolutely. I think that one day we will absolutely expand outside the 20, maybe sooner rather than later, but stay tuned.
Because if you're in mid-market, those customers have endpoints outside the US, right? They are
They
global.
do. And we do support clients already that have international offices, but they're based here in the US.
Okay, so that's a great segue, right? So let's talk about sort of bringing together, even though everybody thinks US is one culture, 35 markets, possibly 35 different microcultures here. So when you pull, plus you have founders' personas in those teams. So as you have done these 44 sort of roll-ups and integration, walk us through how does the journey look like? How to bring them over from their culture, which kind of kept them going and where they are today, and fold them into your culture. But before you go through the process, can you define a little bit about what the 20 culture looked like from inside out?
So the 20 culture, I would say, is built on a few things. I could talk through our core values. I feel like that's really generic, though. No one wants to hear that. But we have created this culture of excellence, but also just really strong community within the 20. I think that is what draws a lot of MSP members initially is a sense of community and just really great supportive people. They become a team. These are competitors ultimately who come together and they help each other grow and scale, and they realize that if we come together that we can build something bigger, we can be part of something bigger. And I think that's true across the board for employees as well. And sorry, I'm trying to remember the other piece of the question.
And the first one is what is the culture? And the second one is how do you bring these different cultures together and make your culture from a process wise?
Great question. I think that is the biggest advantage of the MSPs being members of the 20 before they're acquired. So they're already very integrated into the culture. We know them well, we know their teams well. We don't take every MSP who is interested in the 20, they have to really be a good fit. And so they're pretty integrated into the culture. I know that's a huge thing for other companies with acquisitions because they're bringing in a company that they're not familiar with at all, and sometimes those cultures clash. We don't have that issue. And then speaking to the different markets and geography, obviously they're going to have intricacies, and that plays into marketing. So we don't market like this big faceless corporate entity. We've created a national brand that is very strong but has that personalized market presence and an understanding of those markets. So if you look at the messaging on different markets through ads, through email marketing, it's all going to look a little bit different because they are unique.
So, Krystal, let's go back to a little bit. You said they are already part of the 20 before you sort of approach them and pull them in as an integrated company. What do you mean by they are already part of the 20?
So the 20 is a growth platform. MSPs can join at any time. And we have MSPs who join who have no intention of selling their MSP. And it started out as a growth platform. That's all it was. And then we started doing the acquisitions a few years ago because so many of them were talking about exit and thinking through that. And so they joined the 20. We have total goal alignment because when they grow, we grow. So we're going to help them and guide them through that process. We give them all the tools that they need to grow and scale from the help desk that I've talked about. It's outsourced 24/7, US based, single funnel buying pools. So they're getting better deals on all of their vendor tools. And then sales process. So we do a monthly sales training for our members where they can come down here and learn the model, but they all operate the same. That's also what makes the integration post acquisition very smooth is they're operating exactly the same. They bill the same way, they have the same sales process, they look essentially just like our MSP. But that is so the website, the20.com, we have two, and then we have the 20msp.com, which is for end clients. So companies that we're supporting across the US. But we offer membership in the group for MSPs who are looking to grow.
That's brilliant. So that is your top of the funnel on the acquisition side, that they're
It
sort of
is.
buying into the overall execution infrastructure. And do they white labeled or they go under the 20 and serve sort of more of a franchise model?
No, they don't white label. So they're operating, you'll see most of their websites have a logo under their logo that says powered by the 20. And they've incorporated that into their sales process. And it's really cool for these guys, especially the smaller MSPs, because they're able to sell against large MSPs. So they can go out and confidently sell to a client and assure them that they can provide the coverage that they need. So they may be based in Atlanta, but they get a deal comes in that has offices in Chicago and Dallas and LA, and they're able to support them and save offices there. And so we become an extension of their team.
And so at the top of the funnel, from the acquisition perspective, what does that solution stack look like? Like, what do you offer them that they can take to their customer base?
So we offer the full stack from their PSA, RMM, all of that, cybersecurity compliance. They're going through the 20 for that.
So they go through sort of an academy on the marketing side, sales side, technical, because if they have to transition their infrastructure over, do they do that over a period of time or?
It is over a period of time. So we do have an onboarding process that focuses heavily on the technical side. So our team is getting to know their clients. We're structured in pods. So their clients are calling in, they're always going to get the same pod, the same group of individuals. So they're not calling in and getting routed to hundreds of different technicians, but it relies heavily on good documentation. I would say that's a foundational layer of our onboarding process is good documentation. So they get integrated into the 20, their clients become familiar with the process, and it's very smooth. And then, like I said, they typically come down within a month or two of joining to learn the sales process.
So you talk about documentation. Other side of that is knowledge, and a lot of it is now embedded or getting embedded into AI. So let's talk a little bit about it, maybe in three folds, and we'll go from inside out. So within the company, where are you deploying AI to make the 20 more efficient? Then going into this partner base, what are they using that are not part of your portfolio but have the platform? And third is from an outbound perspective, what you call, let's talk about inbound wise, what marketing tactics and technologies are you deploying from AI wise? So let's go inside, then this extended arm that you have, and then up to the customer.
Okay, complex question. And I feel like I can tease a little bit here. I can't share everything, but we have embedded AI and deployed it throughout every department in the organization. So we have an AI task force. But bigger than that, I mentioned that we have some really big news coming for the 20 or about the 20 very soon. And I think it'll really change the game, but AI is our primary focus in everything that we're doing and built into we will evolve into an AI platform essentially.
So, but from a strategic perspective, last year was the year of experimentation, right? And this year, people are really hunkering down and deploying them to get the benefits, not just sort of labor efficiency, but also quality. The things that some of these tools can do, they were not humanly possible before. So, how do you prioritize from a business perspective? Where are you investing? Can you talk about two or three maybe areas that you have deployed AI outside the ones that you're going to announce?
So I can really only speak heavily on the marketing side, but they're deploying it, like I said, throughout every department. It'd be great for you to have a conversation with our COO or with Tim again to speak to that. I don't want to butcher anything.
I will do that. But let's talk about marketing then. Let's talk about marketing. Where are you deploying? What kind of tools are you deploying? How are you measuring success?
Great question. So, like I spoke about earlier, Gong, we love Gong. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
Yeah.
but it captures every single phone call and then analyzes that data. We use other tools that integrates with, so it pulls it into HubSpot. But we're using that feedback, so it's a feedback loop for our content team to build out new content. And then, I mean, other than that, I think delivery and mechanisms, it's the same as everyone else with marketing tools. I just think it gets better and better with AI. I think though, like flipping this a little bit, and I know you didn't ask this or go here, but I think that AI makes brand more valuable, not less. I think that AI makes execution cheaper, but it makes trust more expensive. And I talk a lot about that. You see that in my LinkedIn posts a lot. I think that AI commoditizes output and that makes reputation premium. And this is where personal brand really comes into play. And I think that because now everyone can create, they're going into, ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or whatever tool they're using, and they can do that easily and create content. I think that differentiation is what shifts from what you're putting out to what people believe about you.
I've watched you sort of come into public life over the last couple of years, and your messages have become bolder, a lot free in a multiple dimension. I kind of relate to that because I have been always an introverted engineer. Getting blogs out on LinkedIn was a big step. My team pushed me out, and then doing these podcasts, I still drink. Like I get nervous, and
Right.
gradually I'm getting more and more comfortable. And you talk a lot about that, but there's another dimension. I have a 19-year-old girl. She's going to college. She's getting open to this, going out to this big world out there. And the other dimension that you talk about being a woman in this sort of very male-dominated IT field, how do you sort of step out? How do you make yourself not just heard, but be the driver and the leader that others follow you? Can you talk a little bit about that change that you have gone through and maybe still going through? What is that?
I love this question. That's another thing that I talk a lot about is helping other women rise in this industry because it is male dominated, like you said. I think that it first starts with believing in yourself. No one is comfortable putting themselves out there. I mean, it just feels really cringe. They get nervous. I talk to our MSPs about this all the time and really push building a personal brand because it is so important as you grow your business. But I think so first is the confidence to do that, putting yourself out there, and then realizing that it's not about vanity, it's not about being an influencer or anything like that. Um, it becomes leverage. Like I talk about a lot, brand leverage. And so it's going to improve everything in your business. It's going to shorten sales cycles, improve recruiting, attract partnerships, increase valuation. I just think it opens a whole lot of doors.
Yeah, but what is personal brand in your mind? I mean, I think you said a very important part that as execution becomes cheap, trust becomes expensive because
Mhm.
everything looks the same because you can't step out, right? So talk to me in please in both of those dimensions that why does it matter to be out there and what does the brand really mean from a customer perspective that they will trust you more because you're out there? What is the messaging or what are they trying to see, you think, in your mind?
I think it boils down to like we do business with humans. Like this may be B2B, but it's about the human side of it. And so people do business with people ultimately. And again, with AI, like the authenticity is what sets you apart. And it's about connection, about the psychology that underlies marketing, connecting with people. And so building a personal brand, what is that? I think ultimately like you have to figure out like what you want to be known for, what your pillars are, the things that you believe and that you stand behind. And for me, that's talking about marketing, personal brand, women in tech, those things, and putting yourself out there, becoming known for that, but in an authentic way.
And what is that authentic way?
It's about being yourself. And I think that it's really easy for people to use AI like, hey, draft me a post than it is to, and AI is a fantastic tool. I'm not saying don't use it to build content. But I talk to people all the time and I say, okay, if you're going to do that, the best thing that you can do is like use the voice transcription, talk to it like you talk and say, just help me refine this into a post. Like, here are my thoughts. But you want to put your original thoughts and content out there and just be you.
And Crystal, kind of going back to the marketing side. So when you think through your sort of outreach, even though they're inbound, but you're putting content out there, how do you put yourself into that equation? I mean, are there threads messaging wise that you lay out and say, okay, these are the two I'm going to pull? And I see you're pulling Tim into posting, which
Yeah.
wasn't the case. I'm sure you're trying to convince him to come out like the way other people did to me.
Yes.
Right. Talk to us a little bit about that.
And so with Tim, it's funny because he definitely uses like voice notes, voice memos, and he'll tell you like his grammar is terrible. Like if he typed a post himself, it would be awful. So it's a great tool for that. But when you see his content, it sounds like him. I mean, like you're in a room with him and it's his legit words, not just something that could be posted by anyone. And I think that's a lot of the content that you're seeing is anyone could post it. And so when you truly build a brand, it sounds like you and it's authentic and it helps you. Sorry. I sometimes my brain's working faster. I'm like, wait, I'm losing my train of thought here.
No, that's great. So we'll take this part. I have a follow-on question. So the question that I kind of wanted to ask is that as both of you kind of get involved, get yourself out there, you're a few steps ahead of Tim for sure from social media wise. But
Don't tell him that.
I'm sure he sees it. So, but what I mean that is that there is a messaging that you're putting out there, and if you're being authentic by yourself, which you are, the brand is getting created based on your personas. So my question is a little bit different from there. Do you think it's easier for founders like you and Tim and others that the brand is an extension of your own vision? It's easier to do and connect the dot versus an operator where the brand is something and then trying to say something. Do you see it's easy or hard in one way or the other?
Oh, 100%. I think that it makes it easier. But I will say, like, posting content is not building a personal brand. I think that a lot of people think that I'm going to post some content and I have a brand because you need substance there. Otherwise, it's just performance. So I think that when you create that visibility and you have conviction, then it's influence. And so, to your question about founder brand, I think that it can become a ceiling for the company when the company is dependent on one personality instead of one clear philosophy. And so the best founder brands are going to elevate the company. They're not going to eclipse it, as you've seen, for example, with Tim's brand.
That's quite amazing. So, Crystal, kind of looking forward, let's say in the next 12 months, when you look at your sort of execution strategy, what portion of that is sort of driven by AI and how much of that still stays human driven? When do you think AI is going to take over a lot of the execution pieces? What happens to that mix?
I think that AI, like I said earlier, can help you with efficiency and with scale, but there is a human side of marketing that you cannot take over with AI. In fact, like a lot of people will bring things to us and be like, here, I just created this. They spit it out of whatever AI they're using. And I step back and say, okay, read that, read through it. Like you are the prospect. How does that sound to you? Would that be appealing to you? And so you can't just offload marketing to AI. But again, I think that it can help you with efficiency and scale. An area that we're also really focusing, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but is AI search. So more and more people are using AI tools, LLMs, to search for businesses versus Google. People have also gotten smart to Google ads. They don't want to click on an ad. They know, oh, they pay for that. And so we've always focused heavily on the organic side as well, ranking organically. But now a big shift has been into AI search optimization so that we're being recommended through AI as well.
It's very cool. From a travel plan wise, I know you have started to travel now worldwide. Are there any specific places you guys are planning to go? Any targets, any markets that you're trying to expand?
To expand the company or
Yeah.
travel to
Well,
personally?
both. I would imagine you're going to possibly combine a little bit of both.
Right.
Yeah.
There is so much interest in Europe and in Australia. I think the MSP markets are very big and they are a little behind where we're at if you look at MSPs across the board. And so there's definitely great demand. We see that a lot. We go to events. We've done some of the Kaseya events in Europe and Asia as well. And there's definitely a need for something like the 20 over there as a growth platform. And so I definitely think that is something that you will see in the next few years.
Awesome. So, with that ambitious vision, I think we're going to wrap today. Crystal, I have to have you back for a part two of this. I really want to get into the social marketing part, which it looks like you're building in a very integrated way with your AI strategy. But thank you for being here.